what you're wondering, what is this video about? Colecovision game review. I know what you're saying. Why don't I have my dry erase board up? Well, I ran into a problem with that. It seemed like no matter what I did, I couldn't keep the light coming off, glaring off of it. So, back to paper and marker I went. And it looks, in my opinion, it'll work. Alright. But I don't have a Colecovision, alright. What I have that I picked up is a modded out Wii with a whole bunch of emulators. I didn't buy it for the Wii because the Wii U will play all Wii games. And Wii games are cheap. I know of a couple places I get them and they're cheap. They're about 5 to 10, 15 bucks. Except for Mario Kart and Super Mario Wii. But the rest of them are all about 5, 10 bucks. Okay, let's get right into it. 2010 graphic action. No review, I don't remember why. Alphabet Zoom, no review because it was a kid's game. It was, alright, I just didn't feel like reviewing the first one because I don't remember why. And the second one was, I took one look at it, realized it was a little kid's game immediately and lost all interest in it. The third one, Antarctic Race. That's a fun game. Oh, by the way, my coloring is, if it's blue, which is right here. Blue means good game. Green means must have. Red, avoid, like to play, unless I explain why. It was a fun racing style game. You were a penguin running around Antarctica. Aqua Attack was a very interesting playable game. Artillery Duel. Only problem I have with that is a 2-player game. Well, I guess they decided to make one like Intellivision. This is the same generation as Intellivision and Atari 5200. Okay, BC Quest was playable. BC Garage Revenge was barely playable. Barely. Beam Rider was playable. Blockade Runner was playable. Oh yeah, any game made by the company Noxon, N-O-X-O-N, were all bad. They were horrible. They were the LJN for the ColecoVision, like LJN was for the Nintendo. Brain Strainers was playable. Buck Rogers was playable. Bump and Jump was playable. Burger Time is almost the arcade. They almost nailed that sucker perfectly. Cabbage Patch Kids Adventures in the Park was playable. It was kind of a cheesy, honestly, that was a cheesy pitfall wannabe game. Complete with the swinging from the vines and the lily pad. Alright, now for the first game that had a controller problem built into the game. Cabbage Patch Kids Picture Show. I'm guessing you need a mouse, so that was a game made for the Atom. Campaign to 84, it was playable, but I couldn't figure it out. Carnival, another almost perfect spot on arcade port. The thing was almost perfect. Beautiful. Centipede. Alright, there's another game in this thing further on down called Slither. Centipede had no problem using the ColecoVision controller. However, for Slither, you had to use the trackball. And actually, the game came with the trackball. I thought that was stupid. I think that's stupid. Should have given you the option to use the trackball. Oh well. Choplifter was not playable. Controller had an issue. I don't know what was wrong with it, but you know what? Boulder Dash, next game, was playable. Chuck Norris was not playable. Believe me, I tried all 4 levels, hoping something would work. No, nothing worked. And I rebooted it about 5 times. Nope. Congo Bongo was kind of it was playable, it was kind of a Donkey Kong game, style game. Cosmic Adventure was okay, it was alright. Down Busters was unplayable because I needed the instruction manual. Dance Factory was not playable, period. It was just not playable. I don't know what the deal with it was. Decathlon was not playable. Defender was a good game. It was actually a good port. But just like any other Defender game, I need the arcade panel. Destructor was not playable. Donkey Kong was great. It was as close. They left off one stage. They left off one type of level, the moving sidewalks. But other than that, it was damn near a perfect spot-on game. And best part, it was a packing game. All right. Donkey Kong Jr. was good too. Actually, it was great too. Dr. Seuss was playable. Dragon Lair would not boot up. I tried that thing about 9 or 10 times. It would not boot up. Dragonfire was not playable. The controller was all food barred. It would. Just put it this way: you have to try it. Dukes of Hazzard, driving controller. Every driving game on the Colecovision, you had got to use the driving controller. Facemaker was playable. Frogger was almost the arcade. It was almost a spot-on arcade game. Frogger 2 was playable. It was interesting. Coaxium was almost arcade port. Almost a perfect arcade port. Gateway to Asia was playable. Okay, next one on the list, Gorf. What kept it from being green? By the way, in the arcade, I hated the machine talking to you, talking trash at you. I hated that, but I didn't miss that. They left off the Coaxiums level, which is the middle level. That's the best one in the game. But other than that, that's why it's blue, not green. Ghostbuster, couldn't play it. It was just not playable. Ugh. Gyros, it was an almost perfect arcade board. Problems with it were it was designed for a paddle, not a stick. Hero, playable. It's an interesting game. Dice was playable. Illusions was not playable. It's only rock and roll, couldn't figure it out. I was confused, could not figure it out. That's on me. James Bond, not playable. Jukebox was playable and interesting. Jumpmaster Jr. was barely playable. Jumpman Jr., was barely playable. Jungle Hunt was great. Interesting game. Ken Wilson Poker was great. Poker and Blackjack. I like video Blackjack, I admit it. Keystone Capers was a perfect spot on. It was cool on the Atari 2600. They didn't need to jazz it up, and they didn't. Ladybug was almost spot on. And I actually have seen Ladybug in an arcade. A little place I know called Sattergate. Played it there, and that port was pretty much spot on. Let's see, Learning the Looper, kids game, playable. Linking Logic, playable, another kids game. Logic Levels was playable. Memory Manor was playable. Oh, I forgot looping. Looping, well, this way, don't waste your time on it. The controller is horrible. Miner 24-9er was cute and playable. Monkey Academy was a kid's game, but it's playable. Montezuma's Revenge, very interesting game, and it's playable. Some of them I remember, because some of them I'm like, wow, that's a neat game. Moon Sweeper, playable. Motocross Racer, I'm assuming you gotta have a driver controller. Mousetrap, love that game. That was the game I wanted a Colecovision for. Mr. Dude, close enough to the arcade. The only thing you need to do is stick a quarter in it. Mr. Dude Castle was okay. It was playable. Nova Blast, okay, playable. Oilswell, playable, interesting game. Mountain King, playable. Omega Race was good, but it needed the paddle. It needed a paddle and a thrust button. but it was all right. One-on-one basketball, okay. I can't really play video basketball. That's on me, not on the game. Pac-Man it wasn't perfect, but it was good enough. It was good enough that it was, put it this way, every Pac-Man game I judge against two things. The arcade game, for how close is it to that, and how much better is it than the 2600 Atari game. Pepper 2, love that game, a lot of fun. Pitfall, great. Pitfall 2 was barely playable. Pit Stop, another driving game, another can't play game. Cuber, another almost arcade perfect spot on. Cubert's Cubes, good fun game. River Raid, spot on copy of the 2600, and that was a beautiful game. For the Atari 2600, that was a pretty game. Robin Hood was not playable, and I must have booted that thing up 10 times. And what I noticed, it was them Noxon games, they're horrible. Rock and Rope, lousy controller. Rocky Boxing was playable. I couldn't figure out how to make it work, but that's on me, not on the game. By the way, if I want to play boxing, I'll play Mike Tyson's Punch Out, or just straight up Punch Out. Thank you very much. Quest for Quit, well, the ROM was totally broken. Roll Overture, lousy game. Sammy Lightfoot was playable, but it was weird. Sector Alpha, not playable. Sewer Sam, not playable. Sir Lancelot, not playable. Slither, trackball controller needed. Don't know why, but you know what? I'm already over it. Slurpee. That was the one Noxon game that I felt was playable. Smurfs paint and play. Here's the mouse controller. Smurfs Rescue. It was okay. It was playable. The jumping was weird. You had to push the stick up instead of push the button. Space Fury was a great port. I played that one in the arcade back in the day. It's kind of an asteroids game. Space Panic was totally unplayable. Spy Hunter, pretty good port. Not quite, but close enough. Squishum Sam, it was an okay game, kind of interesting. Spectron was playable. Star Trek Strategic Emulator was playable. Star Wars the arcade game was playable. Sharp was playable, but the controller was funky. It was weird. In other words, most games when you push up, they go up. No, that thing, you push up, it dives. Push down, it climbs. Totally backwards. Baseball, the controller failed. I'm assuming you got to have that special controller. Same thing with football. Super Cobra, there was no keyboard. My only question was River Scramble. Super Cross Force, pretty good game. Super Stretch, another Mario Paint game. Tapper was a good game. Tarzan, good game. Teleturtle, another Mario Paint game. Dress Show, playable. Time Pilot, love this game in the arcade. The Colecovision port, I'll give it 3 stars. Okay, before you chew me out, why 3 and not 4 to 5? They left out the saucer ship, the saucer level. They got the 4 levels before the saucer, they couldn't have the saucer level. Why? And that was the coolest looking one of the bunch. Totemite the Barbarian was a horrible game. Tournament Tennis, okay. Turbo, driving controller again. Tutankhamun was playable, but you could only fire left and right. And the right wasn't always consistent. Up and down was not playable, period. Venture was playable. Victory was not playable. No matter what I did, I could not get Venture to work. I could not get Victory to work. The next 3 all had the same gripe. War Games, War Room, and Wing War. They all needed a manual or instruction. Okay, Wizard of Id Math. It was a playable kids game. Word Feud, not playable no matter what it is. Zaxxon, great board. First time I saw it came in the arcade, I was like, wow, that's amazing. And I felt that way about that for what I was looking at. Zingy was playable. Okay, now for the ones that didn't make it to the States for one reason or another, Cosmic Crisis was not playable. Evolution was interesting. You start off as bacteria and you evolve. Bacteria, then fish, then a frog. I got to the frog. I don't know what's after that, but you know what? It was an interesting game. It was playable. Meteor Shower was a good game. Tank Wars was a lot of fun. That I don't know why that didn't make it over. Popeye was great, almost spot on, and Dig Dug was great. It was until you get to the Nintendo. That was the best of the bunch. End of story. I just did a review of every single ColecoVision game. The good, the bad, and the good, the great, the good, the playable, the bad. For what it was a great system. In that generation, you had, in my opinion, there was 3 consoles in that generation. You had Atari 52, you had Intellivision, and you had Coleco. And I have an emulator, I mean not an emulator, I have a Xbox One, I have an Xbox disc that's loaded on my Xbox. My Xbox with all the emulators on it. With a boatload of emulators on it as well. That has about somewhere between a third and a half of all the Intellivision games. That's how I'll review the Intellivision. I ain't gonna lose no sleep over that. My opinion, until the Nintendo came along, the ColecoVision was the best game you could get. I'm going to review the Atari 5200 games. I've got them all. We'll be working on that for next week. That review will be done next week. In other words, there were some bad games, there were some good games, there were mediocre games. All in the ColecoVision. All the systems had that. But it was an amazing system. Till next time, bye-bye.